The overlooked. Private First Class Ava Sterling wiped down the mess hall tables for the third time that week. Not because it was her assigned duty, technically, sanitation rotated, but because Corporal Matthews had forgotten it was his turn again, and somehow Ava always ended up covering. She didn't complain. Complaints drew attention, and attention was exactly what she'd been avoiding for 6 months. Sterling, when you're done playing janitor, we need coffee runs, Specialist Torres called from across the hall, not bothering to look up from his phone. The dismissive tone was familiar. She was the unit's invisible soldier, the one who did grunt work without complaint and apparently had no other purpose. Ava nodded without comment, finished the tables, and headed out for the coffee run. As she passed a group of soldiers from her unit, she caught fragments of conversation. Sterling's useless in tactical sims. Barely qualified at the range. No idea how she passed basic. She kept walking. Let them think what they wanted. She'd scored expert marksman in qualification, placed top 3 in every tactical scenario, and had a file full of excellent performance reviews. But she never corrected their assumptions, never defended herself, never pulled rank or name-dropped. Because that was the entire point. Staff Sergeant Dominic Kane watched Private Sterling from across the training yard, his tactical mind cataloging observations he'd been making for months. She moved with efficiency that suggested far more training than basic provided. Her weapon handling was textbook perfect. During field exercises, she made tactical calls that revealed strategic thinking beyond her rank. But she kept it quiet. Deliberately so. Dominic had been in the army for 8 years, seen hundreds of soldiers come through. Sterling was different, competent but invisible, skilled but overlooked. He'd almost asked her about it a dozen times but held back, respecting whatever privacy she was clearly protecting. The base-wide formation for the Distinguished Service Award ceremony was called for 1,400 hours. Ava stood in formation with her unit, toward the back where PFCs usually assembled. Her unit mates were whispering about which officers would receive commendations, placing bets on who'd get promoted. Then General Marcus Sterling arrived, 4 stars gleaming, a chest full of decorations, a presence that made the entire base snap to even sharper attention. He was a living legend, 3 combat tours, strategic command, advisor to the Joint Chiefs. Soldiers whispered his name with reverence. The ceremony proceeded through several awards. Then the general stepped to the microphone with a slight smile. I have a special commendation to present today. For a soldier who's exemplified the values of service above self, who's proven herself through merit and dedication despite having every opportunity to coast on connections. He paused, letting the curiosity build. Private First Class Ava Sterling, front and center. Ava's unit collectively froze. Someone muttered, "Wait, our Sterling." Ava walked forward with military precision, her face professionally neutral despite knowing what was about to happen. As she reached the stage, General Sterling's formal expression softened into something unmistakably paternal. "Proud of you, sweetheart," he said quietly, but the microphone caught it. The entire base erupted in whispers. "Sweetheart." The general presented her commendation, for excellence in tactical simulations, expert marksmanship, and exemplary conduct, then embraced her warmly before the formation. Dominic's breath caught as understanding hit him like a tactical strike. Sterling wasn't just any private. She was General Sterling's daughter, and she'd been hiding it perfectly for 6 months. As Ava returned to formation, every soldier who dismissed her, ignored her, and made her invisible was now staring with a mixture of shock, fear, and sudden desperate desire to befriend her. But Ava's expression remained calm, professional. She'd proven what she needed to prove. And Dominic, watching from his position, felt respect mixing with attraction he'd been suppressing for months, suddenly understanding why this particular soldier had fascinated him from the start. She'd earned everything. And that made her extraordinary. Revelation and respect. The aftermath was immediate and uncomfortable. Soldiers who'd barely acknowledged Ava's existence suddenly wanted to be her best friend. Corporal Matthews, who'd conveniently forgotten his mess hall duties for weeks, approached with a nervous smile, offering to buy her lunch. Specialist Torres, who dismissed her as useless, now wanted her advice on tactical scenarios. Ava declined politely but firmly, her expression making it clear she remembered exactly how they'd treated her when they thought she was nobody. That evening, a knock came at her barracks door. Staff Sergeant Kane stood there, his expression unreadable. "Walk with me, Sterling. Now." They walked to an empty corner of the base, near the training grounds where no one would overhear. Dominic finally spoke, his voice tight with controlled emotion. 6 months. 6 months you let everyone treat you like you were incompetent. Why the hell didn't you tell anyone who you were? Would it have changed anything? Ava met his eyes directly. If I'd shown up day one as General Sterling's daughter, what would have happened? Special treatment. Assumptions that I only got through basic because of my name. People currying favor. Resentment from those who thought I didn't earn my place. She crossed her arms. I enlisted under my mother's maiden name specifically to avoid that. I wanted to know if I could make it on my own merit, not riding my father's reputation. So you deliberately let people underestimate you. I let people see what they assumed, a quiet private who did her job. And you know what I learned? Ava's voice held an edge. That most soldiers judge based on first impressions and rumors rather than actual performance. I had excellent eval scores, expert marksmanship, top tactical sim results. But because I didn't brag or demand attention, I was invisible. Dominic was silent for a moment, processing. I noticed. What? Your skills. Your tactical thinking. The way you handled weapons, ran scenarios, never complained even when people dumped work on you. He stepped closer. I've been watching you for months, Sterling. You're one of the most competent soldiers I've seen at your rank. I almost said something a dozen times but didn't want to show favoritism or make you uncomfortable. Ava's expression softened slightly. You were the only one who seemed to actually evaluate performance instead of just making assumptions. That's my job as a squad leader. But Dominic's tone had shifted, becoming less formal. It's also why I've been maintaining distance. Because I noticed more than just your tactical skills. The air between them charged with sudden tension. What else did you notice? Ava's voice was quieter now. That you're brilliant. Dedicated. Strong. That watching you move through tactical scenarios made me want to know how your mind works. Dominic took another step closer. That I've been attracted to you for months but couldn't act on it because of rank, regulations, and the fact that I knew nothing about your personal life. And now you know I'm a general's daughter. Does that change things? It complicates them. Dominic's honesty was absolute. But it doesn't change how I feel. If anything, knowing you chose to prove yourself without using your father's name makes me respect you more. Ava held his gaze, something vulnerable breaking through her carefully maintained composure. I've noticed you too. The way you lead with respect instead of just authority. How you actually evaluate performance fairly. The way you, she stopped, then pushed forward. The way you make me feel seen, even when I was trying to be invisible. Ava. Her first name felt significant in his mouth. I'm your squad leader. There are regulations. Off base. Away from the unit. She closed the remaining distance between them. We're both adults. We're allowed to have lives outside our rank structure. Dominic studied her, this woman who'd hidden in plain sight for 6 months, who'd proven herself against bias and assumption, who was looking at him now with the same carefully controlled desire he felt. My apartment. Off base. Tomorrow, 1900 hours. It wasn't quite a question. I'll be there. Ava's response was immediate. When she arrived the next evening in civilian clothes, Dominic barely recognized her, jeans, a simple shirt, her hair down instead of regulation bun. She looked younger, softer, but her eyes still held that tactical sharpness. They talked for hours, about her father's legacy and the weight of it, about Dominic's 8 years in service and what he'd learned, about wanting to be seen for who they were rather than their ranks or connections. Then talking became touching, gentle at first, testing boundaries. When Dominic finally kissed her, Ava responded with intensity that had been building for months, her hands in his hair, his arms pulling her closer, both of them letting down walls they'd maintained too long. "This okay?" Dominic asked against her lips, always respectful, always checking. "More than okay." Ava's voice was certain. "I want this. I want you." They made love carefully, discovering each other with the same attention to detail they both applied to tactical planning, Ava learning what made Dominic gasp, Dominic discovering exactly where to touch to make her arch into him. Afterward, tangled together on his couch, Ava traced patterns on his chest. "People are going to talk. Let them." Dominic kissed her forehead. "We're not violating regulations, different chain of command, off-duty relationship. And honestly, I don't care what they think. I care about you." "Good." Ava looked up at him, her expression open in a way it never was on base. "Because I'm done hiding. Not my skills, not my name, and definitely not this." They fell asleep together, two soldiers who'd found connection despite regulations and legacy, proving that sometimes being overlooked was exactly what you needed to discover what was real. Earned and chosen. 3 months transformed everything in nothing. Ava's promotion to specialist came through based on performance evaluation submitted before her identity revelation, a fact she made sure everyone understood. She'd earned her rank through documented excellence, not nepotism. Her relationship with Dominic deepened carefully. They were discreet on base, professional, appropriate, never showing favoritism. Off base, they built something real, dinners where they talked strategy and dreams, weekends exploring nearby towns, quiet mornings where rank didn't matter and they were just Ava and Dom. The unit's treatment of her evolved. Some genuinely apologized for their dismissiveness, others remained resentful. Ava didn't care either way, she'd proven what she needed to prove. Then General Sterling requested a meeting. Both of them. In his office. Dominic's military composure held, but Ava felt his tension as they stood at attention before her father's desk. At ease. The general gestured to chairs, his expression unreadable. "Staff Sergeant Kane, I'm aware you're involved with my daughter." "Sir, we maintain complete professionalism on base and follow all regulations regarding," Dominic began. "I know. I've had you investigated." The general's bluntness was characteristic. Different chain of command, off-duty relationship, no favoritism shown. Technically acceptable. He paused. "More importantly, I've watched how you treat her. You saw her skills before you knew her name. You respected her abilities when others dismissed her. You didn't try to use her connection for career advancement. I would never. I know. That's why I approve." The general's expression softened slightly. "Ava's been fighting my shadow her entire life. People assuming she'd ride my reputation, doubting her capabilities, offering advantages she didn't want. She needed to prove herself on her own terms. You let her do that." Ava found her voice. "Dad, I don't need your permission." "No, you don't. But you have my blessing anyway." General Sterling looked between them. "You're both adults, both excellent soldiers. Just remember, her career is hers to build. Don't let anyone suggest otherwise." "Sir, I would never," Dominic started again. "I know, son. That's why you're sitting here instead of being transferred to Alaska." The general's attempt at humor was gruff but genuine. "Dismissed. And Ava? Dinner Sunday. Bring him." Walking out of the office, Ava exhaled shakily. "That went better than expected. Your father had me investigated." "Of course he did. He's a general. And overprotective. She took his hand once they were away from headquarters. But he approves. That matters, even if I don't need permission. 6 months later, Ava and Dominic stood together watching new recruits run training exercises. She'd been accepted into officer candidate school, earning her way through competitive application, not connections. Dominic had been promoted to sergeant first class for exceptional leadership. Deployment orders came through, Ava said quietly, her hand in his. 6 months in Germany, then OCS when I return. We'll make it work. Dominic's certainty was absolute. Long distance isn't easy, but neither is anything worth having. When I finish OCS, when I'm commissioned. Ava turned to face him. I'm going to be an officer. You'll still be enlisted. That complicates things. Different branches solve that. I've been considering a transfer to military intelligence. I'd work under Army Command, you'd be Air Force liaison. No chain of command issues. Dominic had clearly been planning. If you want that. If you want us long-term. I want forever. Ava's directness was characteristic. Marriage, partnership, building careers side by side. Think you can handle being married to a general's daughter who's determined to make her own general someday? I think I can handle being married to Ava Sterling, the woman who hid her identity to prove herself, who earned every commendation, who chose me when she could have had anyone. Dominic pulled her closer. The general's daughter thing is just bonus family drama. They kissed, not caring who saw. Their relationship was documented, appropriate, and absolutely real. Think people will ever stop talking about how the overlooked private became a specialist dating her squad leader? Ava asked against his lips. Probably not. But let them talk. Dominic's smile was genuine. You proved yourself. You earned respect. And you chose someone who saw you, not your father's rank. Best decision I ever made. Ava's voice held absolute certainty. Second only to enlisting under my mother's name and being invisible for 6 months. Best 6 months of my life, Dominic agreed. Because it let me fall for you without bias, rank, or assumption. Just Ava. The brilliant, fierce, extraordinary woman who happened to be hiding in plain sight. They stood together as the sun set over Fort Bragg, 2 soldiers who'd found love despite regulations and legacy. Ava had been overlooked, dismissed, and invisible. Until she wasn't. Until her skills, her dedication, and her deliberate choice to prove herself without her father's name made her impossible to ignore. And in the process, she'd found someone who'd seen her all along, not because of her last name, but despite everyone else's blindness to who she really was. Sometimes being overlooked was the greatest gift. It let you discover who truly saw you. And for Ava and Dominic, that made all the difference.